Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be sharing our story on how VMware made use of Carbon Black Cloud to simplify security operations. So to introduce ourselves, I'm Bharat. I'm Senior Manager for Information Security, Architecture and Engineering. And also I'm a part of IT Tech Review Board representing from security standpoint, ensuring all the security controls are in place. And also I do research and do evaluation of various security products as per the security requirement. Yeah, Giridhar, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Bharat. Hi, everyone. I am Giridhar Modagi. I manage the security operations for VMware. So we do have counterparts across the globe, and I do take care of India operations. So I've been part of SOC since the beginning of my career, and have been working and have worked in several sectors, which includes banking, insurance, or managed trade services. What do you, Kiran?
Thank you, Giridhar. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Myself, Kiran, I lead the security operations team in India for VMware, and I also responsible for automating most of the SOC tasks within VMware as well. So I have around 11 years of experience, mainly into security as a security consultant, and also in the SOC operations.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. Okay, this is the agenda what we have. First, we'll be covering up on our VMware vision, which is intrinsic security. And then we'll be touching upon the Carbon Black Cloud overview, the platform and the features available within that, and also on the eye level at the deployment plan. And then we'll be covering up on how Carbon Black simplified security operations, and then what is soaring at VMware, meaning like how we integrated the SOAR platform with Carbon Black Cloud for automation. And also we'll be touching upon the various Carbon Black APIs available and the use cases, and then later on our success story. Okay, let's jump on to the VMware vision, which is intrinsic security. So we believe in combining these two things, prevention, detection, and also hardening the infrastructure. So what is intrinsic security? So just to put it in a simple words, it's a strategy that we are leveraging to any infrastructure to build in by design itself across any app, any cloud, and any device to protect apps and data everywhere, across the enterprise. So intrinsic security, what we're trying to say here is the security should be built in and not bolted on, should be unified, and it should not be siloed, and it should be context-centric and not threat-centric. So what do you mean by built in and not bolted on? In the current industry, we are seeing a lot of security tools are getting embedded, like when we see some incidents or breach, we keep on procuring a lot of security softwares or the tools to build or like to counterattack the threat on top of it. Instead, what we are saying in our vision is like it should be built in. If the security is embedded into it at the beginning stage itself, it can avoid or it can reduce a lot of attack surface. And then what do we mean by unified and not siloed? So what we are saying is the security should be unified across tool, techniques, and the teams. So currently, like many of the other team within the IT operations team, they do to a certain level, they don't take care of the security, but combining with us, it can add a lot of value, and we do get larger picture of the threat or the attack surface. So in that way, we can really reduce the risk to the organization. And about the context centric, these days, like many of the industries are like more towards the threat centric. Instead of that, we need to know what do we need to really protect. So just we need to go beyond just protocols and the ports. Instead of that, if we dive in deep into it, understanding the applications, what are the processes running behind that, where and all it's making the connection, from where the connection are coming into that application. So if you have that complete info picture of it, we can come up with a more security policy and controls to put around it so that it will safeguard the organization. So to put it in short, having all these three built-in, unified, and context-centric provides a unique capability to any organization to safeguard the data and application. So this is about the intrinsic security, and let's see about what do we have in the Carbon Black Cloud. So this is the platform So all these things are available in single console, and all this can be achieved with just having a lightweight single agent carbon black sensor agent installed on the systems. So these are the things it provides. So it has the next generation antivirus feature. It has a EDR feature, which can do the behavior based analysis as well. And this has the device control, can be used to manage and control the external devices like the USB. And coming on to this Kubernetes, yes, this was recently released, and it does some runtime and image scanning. And also it has vulnerability management feature, where we can do a vulnerability scanning on the endpoint system, and that can be reported to the owners directly. And audit and remediation, this is something formerly called as live ops or live query, where we can do on real-time query from those endpoint system, and we can take action accordingly, whatever we want to block or contain or isolate it completely like that. So all these are available in one single platform within the Carbon Black Cloud. And also this is compatible with all the other platforms, OS platforms like Windows, Mac, Linux, and now it is also on, it can be installed in Azure Cloud, GCP, AWS, and recently we released it for the vSphere environment as well. That's an agent plus. So whatever the infrastructure within the vSphere can be protected. So yeah, in that agent plus vSphere part. And also, yes, it also supports containers. So this is about the platform. And let's see what Carbon Black delivers. So it provides a superior protection, right? It prevents known and new threats as and then evolve. Even it can detect and respond to any some zero-day attacks as well. And it provides actionable insights. So as I said, we can do some live query, live investigation, and take remediation action on the real-time basis. And it simplified the operations, like combining a lot of security tools. It is helping us to operate in a faster and more effective way. And this also has out of the box customizable behavior detection. And it also provides some good pictorial representation of attack chain. So all these things are available in a single window. So now let's move on to the deployment journey. So if you have something in mind, okay, where to begin with? So these are the main phases, what we follow: deployment and strategy plan, and the production readiness, and the training. So what is there in the deployment strategy plan? So we need to first really define what problem are we trying to solve here. So is it something because of some data breach or some breach happened at the organization? Do we need to come up with this Carbon Black EDR solution, or is there any some audit coming in where there is a requirement for EDR, or is there any upcoming renewal and we need to replace the existing product? So if we need to have that and set some timeline. So we had set the target 3 months, and the technology, and we need to also have all these things in the deployment plan, meaning, I mean, the process, people, and technology, the PPT. So from our standpoint, the technology was like to replace the existing one. And then the process we followed, or we defined it in the deployment and strategy plan, is like to silently install with no end user impact. So that was our main objective, because we give utmost importance to end user experience. And also considering the people, like we deployed it at the time of wave 1 COVID time. So most of them were remote. So we need to take that also into consideration, how we are going to do that. So we'll talk about it, how we did it in upcoming slides, but yeah, that's the plan we had. And in the production readiness, we need to ensure, or we need to develop all the policies required for the validation. And we had one resource dedicated for the fine tuning, because I mean, there is much required to fine tune. Otherwise, there will be flooding of alerts, and then it will become a complex situation to analyze for the top team. And also we need to have a plan in place. What kind of events are we going to forward it to SIM? Is it just an alerts, or all the alerts and all the activities as well? So we need to have that also in place. And then we need to have a proper roles for the Carbon Black Cloud, following the role-based access control and least privilege access. And also this is also one of the main part on the training part. So we need to have a training plan just in time, not too early or not too late. providing the training too early to the SOC team or to the incident response team, there might be a chance of forgetting it. Or if you're providing it too late, there are chances like there might be it's going to be late for them actually to adopt the complete SOC UI and all. So we need to provide the training just in time. So these are the plan we had before beginning or when we want to solve the problem. And then we came up with a requirement as per the strategy plan. So we need to have a clear requirement. We need to chart out all the requirements, what we need to test, what are the use cases we wanted to fulfill and all, and give the weightage for each of these items. Not all the requirements will have the same weightage. It depends on the criticality. So we need to define weightage for each of the requirement and then publish the scoring metrics, come up with the scoring metrics, checking out or validating with each of the requirements, and then engage the right relevant stakeholders. So we had engaged IT operations team, security incident response team, SOC team, and other VGrid team also, and also a wire system, which means here the service desk team. And then we charted out the RACI, responsibility, accountability, consultant, and inform. So we charted out that as well. And we discussed among all of us, and we captured and also assessed the functional and non-functional requirement. And we ensured, yeah, we are all in agreement with the requirements. And once we have the requirement, we need to do the performance testing. So we need to check whether it's compatible to all the OS, whatever we have it in our environment. Yeah, we ensured it is compatible with Linux, Mac, Windows servers, and also the Windows 10 systems. So that is what we have it in our VMware. And then the performance consideration, like boot time versus run time, as I said, we ensure there is no performance impact, or we give more importance to the end user experience so that there is no impact to the productivity. So that was also all well. And then the deployment strategy, we had this plan in the deployment. We need to install this silently, no reboot, and there should be no interaction to the employees, like uninstalling and installing or restarting, all those things. So we ensured that in the plan. So we used our own homegrown product, which is Workspace ONE for that. So which we'll be covering up later. And also we need to check or validate for the effectiveness. So red team testing, what do we mean by that? So we did a live fire exercise with the help of the red team following the Mitre attack by running a sample malware. So with running the sample malware, the Carbon Black was able to detect that, and it was able to flag an alert to the SOC team, and the SOC team investigated, and also they were able to get all the relevant details, and they were able to catch hold of it. So that is the something. So which that gave more confidence, or we need to check for that effectiveness. And then we need to understand our environment, and we need to fine tune the policy, because each organization will have their own set of requirements according to their organization, and so we need to fine tune accordingly. So for us, it's like VMware is an R&D shop. We do have a lot of burst chambers, or we do have a lot of lab where R&D guys will be performing a lot of rigorous testing. So there can be an impact, or sometimes there can be flood of traffic. So we need to fine tune accordingly. Otherwise, the Carbon Black will detect them as a suspicious, and it might alert us, so which is a false positive. So we need to understand our environment and need to fine tune accordingly. And also there are Carbon Black KPIs available, and we have integrated that with our SWORD platform, or that can be made use with other security tools as well. So we need to ensure that as well, whether the APIs are working as expected or not. So we did all this validation, and it was all fine for us. And then later we need to also check with the integration. Are we securing the logs? Are we collecting all the required logs? It can be like all the activities, or whether are we seeing only one set of activities. So we need to ensure we are collecting unfiltered data to the Carbon Black Cloud console. So then only we can, it will help for the Carbon Black Cloud intelligence to do the correlation and do justice over there. And then we need to define the retention period. So it varies from country to country. Each country will have their own regulatory data regulations. So we need to abide by that, and we need to follow that as well. So we need to define retention period as per the country wise, and then manage log data. So once we collect the log data, or like when we are pushing the logs from the Carbon Black Cloud or in any of our SIM device, we need to see whether do we need to filter any of the logs, or do we send all the logs, and how are we going to manage the logs? Is that to be encrypted, or how do we take backup of all those things? So all those parameters have to be considered. And then the SOC UI adoption, whether the SOC team and the incident response team are very well versed with the user interface of the Carbon Black Cloud. So that also we need to check. And along with this, we need to check whether all the devices what we wanted to cover are covered and reporting in properly or not. And we need to validate the integrations of various security operations tool. It can be SIEM, or it can be SOAR tool, or it can be with any of the other third-party threat intelligence. So we need to ensure that integrations as well. And also we need to ensure whether the cloud-based and the remote systems are reporting in as expected. So this is with respect to all the validation for the with respect to validating the performance and the effectiveness and with the integration. So let's see how the Carbon Black Cloud made a positive impact to VMware. So we seamlessly enabled to around 40,000 systems. So in which like 20,000 Mac systems and 19,000 Windows systems. And also we installed it to around 2,500 Windows servers. So in the previous solution, the retention period was just 7 days, but yeah, with this, it was 30 days, which really helped us actually like to get correlation from the historical data. And what are the challenges we solved? There were a lot of alerts coming in. There was flood of alerts, and we need to fine tune. If you just go ahead with out of box policies, yes, we'll end up with a lot of alerts actually. So we need to fine tune as per our environment and as per our requirement. And we ensured we limited the event filtering for log ingestion, and we reduced the noise over there as well. And also there were some challenges at the time. When we started the POC at the pilot phase itself with the Defender enablement on the Windows devices, there were some issues in installing the Carbon Black sensor, but yeah, we were able to resolve that or fix that very quickly working with the product team, and we were able to install the Carbon Black sensor seamlessly. So that's the deployment journey. So with that, I will be handing over to Giridhar to talk about on the security operations part. Over to
Hey,
you,
thanks,
Giridhar.
Bharat. Yeah, thanks, Bharat. So before we delve into challenges, I would like to give a brief introduction of security operations for the peer folks who are not well aware about it. So security operations is one of the integral parts for any organization with regards to threat detection and management, right? So well known as SOC team, we monitor for alerts, keep an eye on glass, monitor for any suspicious attacks, and then we investigate and take a adequate response, whichever is required, right? So majority of the SOC team would have SIM platforms, that is security information and even management platforms, as one tool which we use in order to monitor alerts and handle it, right? So there are all the logs from several devices will be fed into this SIM console, and this is the console where which the analyst would be looking at. So when an alert triggers in SIM console, the SOC analyst will look at alerts, gather basic details, do the initial investigation, correlate with several other tools, which could be antivirus, IDS, or firewalls, identify what exactly has happened, whether this is a true positive alert, false positive alert, and if it is a true positive, how do we actually do the fixing or the remediation or the mitigation part for these alerts. So this is a general or a very high level view of how a SOC analyst or how a SOC works, right? So with this in background, let's delve into the challenges that we face day to day. Like I said, there are tons of logs that gets pulled into SAM, right? And owing to which there are too many alerts that we also monitor. There are several, and these alerts could span all the way from very basic alerts which could be like brute force or anything like that, to active exploit usage, right? So anything like that. And with that, there will be so many alerts that the SOC would need to monitor, and for each alert there will be standard operating procedures, playbooks, which the analyst would need to manually follow, and these all has to be documented, and the triage process would need to be followed as per that. So when we are investigating any alert, some things that needs to be taken care of in any SOC is not all the alert investigation or alert triage requires manual intervention, right? So some of these could be automated. Some of the responses that we send could also be automated, and that is something which every SOC will have to take into consideration and decide on how much percentage of our work can be automated. And the fourth point and the fifth point, I think, is kind of correlated or connected, because, like I said, there are several tools that we actually use in order to identify the holistic view of what exactly is happening on an endpoint, right? So we don't have an overall view. So because of which SOC analysts tend to spend a lot of time investigating in each of the tools, identifying the granular details, so that holistic visibility and reporting is not there, which actually leads to a longer incident response time. So all of these combined together, if sometimes it actually limits our ability to offer new services, or even we will have to train our resources, because they will have to be well equipped, they will have to be skilled in order to do this holistic investigations, right? And it actually costs expenses as well. So obviously leading to potentially turning away business, right? So these are some of the major challenges that we have seen. So we will cover how Carbon Black helps us solve these challenges in the next slides. So as mentioned in the slide, the best data provides the best security. What do we mean by this? First of all, uh, like I said, the raw unfiltered data will be pulled from Carbon Black sensors or any devices into the actual server, right? So this raw unfiltered data is not the one which the SOC actually uses to monitor the data. It has to be enriched, it has to be refined, it has to be considered with whether it is in accordance to threat intels or not. So there is a lot of process before it even comes to SOC usage. So this is where Carbon Black helps us. So Carbon Black comes with something called as streaming analytics. So this streaming analytics is plays a key role for us, wherein it actually sits and observes every single event, analyzes every single event, uses machine learning, artificial intelligence to see what exactly is happening for any event, right? So say for example, there's an exe that gets installed, and after which what happens? So say that is it invoking any new processes, or is it making any new network connections? So all of these Carbon Black streaming analytics sits and observes and collates all of this and puts it into a real-time data, and that's where we get the real-time score. And based on that, there will be a risk score that will be associated, and owing to which, after which we start doing our analysis on what actions needs to be taken. All right. So if we look at the next part, the real-time current state data and flexible enforcement, right? So these are real-time current state data is where the actual score comes up, and it is ready for SOC to investigate, right? This gives us a holistic view, like what all process has been invoked, what exactly happened, and how what is happening on a particular endpoint. And after which there are several other options which Carbon Black provides as an action that could be taken. It could be like blocking particular application, or quarantining a particular network asset so that it gets isolated from the machine. So this is a common activity that we do, right? Whenever there is any machine that gets infected, we usually quarantine it from the network, isolate it from the network, kill the process, or suspend the process that is actually making noise, and then even if it is required for any whitelisting or blacklisting. There are a ton of options that Carbon Black provides, and we do enforce all within Carbon Black. So moving to next slide, I think this is the key slide. I think would actually help us in simplification of security operations. So going back for past few years, right, we didn't have any next generation antivirus, we didn't have any EDRs. We had the traditional antivirus, which used to be updated based on the signatures. Like it was able to identify only the known attacks. When the antivirus vendor was able to push the signatures, that's when that particular antivirus was able to catch or detect the known attacks. But how do we identify the unknown attacks? That's when the next generation antivirus came into picture. It started doing the machine analysis, or even using artificial intelligence. It was able to identify the attacks based on the behaviors. So that's when we went to a next stage from antivirus to next generation antivirus, which was helping us identify several new cyber attacks, right? But then the con with next generation antivirus was we were able to identify only the activities that was happening on one particular endpoint, not on the entire span of machines, right? We have lots of machines, and if we need to identify whether the same activity is happening on any other machine, or is there any common pattern that we see with after being in after say particular exe gets installed. So that's when EDR came into picture, endpoint detection and response. So basically, it helped us give us that holistic data. It doesn't intervene with any process. It just sits there, observes, analyzes, analyzes every single event, assigns a risk score to it, and based on all the correlated activities, it gives an overall score, and that's how it triggers. So this Carbon Black Cloud is actually a combination of next generation AV and EDR. So this combined together, it actually helps us to get more visibility and prevent numerous cyber attacks. Next, moving on to alert triage. One of the common things that a SOC analyst does is we actually look at what process got invoked, or what is the actual flow of the attack, right? And this we used to use several open source tools for that. And with Carbon Black, all of this is available in-house in a single console itself. So we are able to visualize what is the attack flow, what is the actions that needs to be taken, or what are the actions that has already been taken, whether a process has been stopped, not stopped, what actions needs to be taken. All of this can be helpful with the alert triage process. Now, I did mention whether about searching the activity across the network, right? That's where live query comes into picture. Like Carbon Black has a feature called Live Query, wherein there are few recommended queries that we can search, which could be IT hygiene or vulnerability management or anything like that. I'll touch upon that in the coming slides. But with the Live Query, with a very basic SQL queries, we will be able to search what activities are present in the network, and if the same activity is observed across the network, right? So that is one of the very useful feature for us in security operations, and even with live response. So when say let me give you an example. Say there's a machine which is actually connecting to a CNC server after infection, right? So if we need to gather any forensic artifacts, or any kill any processes that is being invoked in that machine, that's when live response comes into picture. We can connect directly to any live machines, any suspected endpoints, and take the actions that is required. And threat hunting, some of you might already know that this is a proactive way of searching for threats which could have evaded our security mechanisms, right? So not all the security attacks gets detected by security tools. So some of them will have to be proactively searched using the behaviors that could be possible. And that's how threat hunting comes into picture. So all of this combined together is available in one single source, and there are a lot of policies that is there in Carbon Black. So we will have to tune it according to our needs. We'll have to make sure it is actually detecting the right attacks, and also it is not making any noise, right? So all of this combined together, it actually helps us simplify the security operations to one stage. But automation combined with this takes it to another level, which we'll cover in the next slides. So let me give you an now this is probably, I would say, a very basic screenshot of how the attacks look like in the Carbon Black console. If you see, there is onto your left, there are several tabs which includes alerts, investigate, live query, and enforce, right? So all of these are some of the things which we covered in the previous slides. Alerts actually lets us know what is the alerts what are the alerts that are triggering, and the ones in red indicates in the alerts, the ones in red, it actually indicates the severity score. So anything with severity 1 and 2 is very basic attacks, maybe like someone trying to find out the details, recon attacks, or anything, any basic information gathering or potentially unwanted applications. Or between 3 to 5 is something in between attacks, wherein they are trying to do a port scan or anything like that, right? Intermediate attacks. But anything beyond 6 is where we will have to take care immediately, because there could be possibility of active exploits or any severe attacks that could be possible, right? So severity 6 and above, I think would be very important, because it could be destructive or any hidden processes could be there. So it is better to be careful on those severity related alerts. And in between, if you see, there are several devices. It shows up like what devices are sending alerts, what are the processes that gets invoked, and similarly, what is the policy that is being run. And accordingly, like for this screenshot, this is basically trying to uh, find out an access attempted on unapproved USB device, right? So this is a test PC, desktop hyphen 1035. But however, it was able to identify what is the sensor version, what is the OS that was there, and what is the USB model, or what is the USB vendor, or what is being used. So that action was detected, and along with that, after using the USB, what all processes that got invoked. So it gives up this granular details as well as the holistic view. So in the next slide, I think we will show up the actions that are available within Carbon Black. Like now we have the alerts, right? So after looking at the alerts, how do we or take the actions, right? So it could be taking control of the asset, you network quarantine the asset to identify you like if there's an infection, the first thing that we need to do is to stop spreading of the infection, right? So you can isolate the machine directly from Carbon Black console. You prevent the further spread of infection, delete the application. And if in case there are multiple assets triggering alerts, for one particular application, you can add the hash to the approved list. And similarly, you can perform remote investigation on the asset via live response, as well as say if you have to tune the policy, you can do it. You can find the say there is a hash and you want to find out the reputation for that, you can find it directly via the console in VirusTotal. So all of these actions are available. And something that EDR specializes also is in fileless detections. So what do we mean by fileless detections is uh, like every day the attackers also uh, keep keep using advanced threats, right? So gone are the days where file-based detections or file-based attacks were used completely. Now fileless detections are also used because they want to evade the security detections and mechanisms, right? So how it works is, say there's a genuine application within the firm that we use, and maybe the approved application within that, if there's a PowerShell invoked, and after which there is a say a script or payload that gets downloaded, usually the antivirus will not be able to detect it. So there's no file within the genuine application itself. There's a PowerShell invocation. So how do we identify such activities? That's where EDR comes into picture, right? So it just sits there, identifies what all activities happens after the PowerShell is invoked. It uses this AMSI feature, that is anti-malware scanning interface feature that it has, and identifies what scripts got downloaded, how what got executed. Like this is the screenshot that is being shown as this example of the same thing. The application contains the indirect file activity. So it clearly tells us that there is something fishy that is happening, and we would need to investigate about it. So moving on to the next slide. I did touch upon the fact of alert monitoring and triage, right? Where it gives the visualization. So this is precisely the example that I was talking about. So if you see in this case, the explorer.exe was invoked, after which there was a PowerShell invocation, post which there was a script invocation, and there was a fileless script that came into picture. So this visualization, when available to an SOC analyst, it helps us identify the actual flow or the actual process that got invoked in an endpoint, right? So this helps us get a holistic view, and after which we can base our investigations based on this. So that's this is very important feature, and I think it'll be anyone who has worked in SOC will be aware about this. Moving on to the next slide. I think the live query, we touched upon this. So if you see this, it is way based on this SQL queries, right? Like in the screenshot, it clearly says select name from scheduled task, order by. These are all very basic SQL queries, and you can search anything that you want in terms of security investigations. What you want to search, whether there is a presence of such activity within the firm using SQL query, and there are few recommended or default queries that comes up, which could be related to IT hygiene, vulnerability management, threat hunting, or compliance. So these are all which you can schedule or run anytime. And with regards to live response, which is the next slide, I think this is basically a simple command that shows like what all actions can be taken after connecting to a live device. So basically you can kill the device, you can make a remote directory, identify what is happening. If you want to take a forensic artifacts before say reimaging the machine, you can do it via live response. So it will be very helpful for our CERT team, and this part is also useful for any hunting of IOCs, right? Like the good example is of dark comet rat, which actually which is a remote access trojan and uses notepad as well as ms dsc and dcsc processes, right? When both of these are combined together, we can actually search for any dark comet rat activities. So like this, we can come up with our own search queries, as well as there is a ton of search queries that Carbon Black itself provides. Like if you see under the attack framework, there are almost like 92 million search advanced threats that can be searched. And similarly, Carbon Black advanced threats has 3000 plus. So like this, there are default several threat hunt queries that could be possible, which Carbon Black suggests, and whichever that could be useful for us. It is all dependent on how we want to take the security framework and how we want to shape it across. And based on that, we can use this threat hunting feature. So this is precisely how Carbon Black helps us simplify the operations. But now, when this is combined with automation, it takes it to a next level, and that's what we'll be covering in the next slides. Over to you, Kiran. You can cover this.
Yeah, thank you, Giridhar. So before we understand VMware Carbon Black Cloud and the SOAR integration, right? So let's understand what SOAR is, right? So like SOAR is like security, orchestration, automation, and response. Tool is like a stack of software solutions or tools that you combine to capture the data from multiple sources and also respond to security events, okay, without the human intervention, right? So that's something which how we define storing, right? So if you have to move to the next slide, understand VMware Carbon Black and SOAR, right? So in our previous slides, we covered how the Carbon Black threat intelligence and machine learning, okay, reduces the false positives and only sends those alerts that needs to be triaged, right? So when those alerts come into the SOAR platform, we should be able to run some automation on those alerts in order to enrich those events, or in order to or in some cases to even respond to those events, so that the entire SOC efficiency goes up, right? So that is where SOC orchestration comes into the picture, right? So how do we integrate the Carbon Black and the SOAR platform is using the APIs that we will talk about in the next slide, right? So the Carbon Black Cloud or the Carbon Black tool itself supports multiple APIs. For example, it also supports open REST APIs, that is using the Python SDK, right? So you can integrate your in-house tools. For example, if you have a sandboxing system, right, or in-house system where you track all the tickets, right? So you can use the open REST APIs to integrate, and the VMware Carbon Black Cloud and the on-premises products, right, have a default integration with some of the security products or vendors, where you can utilize it to combine or integrate those devices in order to in order to triage or respond to any alerts that comes in the Carbon Black Cloud, right? So now we have the integration using the REST APIs, and we integrate it with the SOAR platform, for example. The next immediate question that comes into our mind is, what do we automate, right? And how do we automate, right? So what I'll tell you is not to rush into automation or blindly automating any of the tasks that is there within the SOC. But in order to automate, you should have a well-defined documentation or a team or a process, right? That should be put into place before you write or develop any automation. Okay, so what we believe is like a 3 core components that is something which we structured before we went into automation, right? The first being the API or well-defined API documentation. So we document all the API integrations that we have and what it can do, what are the capabilities of those API, and what actions that it supports, right? So that it is useful when we define or design our playbooks or the automated workflows, right? And the next thing is the team that is willing to excel. Okay, again, what we suggest here is to form a small team within the info sector who are mainly focused on automation, okay, who are well versed in scripting, okay, right? So they only focus on automation, and they also are aware of the SOC processes and the SOPs that the SOC follows, right? So this is a very important component that is to form a team. The next thing is to have a very streamlined process, right? Okay, so in order to develop an automated workflow, you need to have a list of processes that you need to follow. For example, if I have to give an example, right? So any automated workflow or any requirement that comes in from the SOC to automate should be reviewed with the SOC team, okay, to ensure that we understand the requirements, okay, and then we build a skeleton of those requirements, right? So that how are we going to automate this in multiple phases, right? And we also have to make sure, and once we design the skeleton, we will go into implementation of this or developing those workflows, right? Once we develop these workflows, we do a peer review. We should do a peer review in order to ensure that it is meeting the requirements that was initially put up. And then those automated workflows needs to be tested by the SOC team, okay, just to get a sign off from the SOC team to understand, okay, this meets the requirement that we asked for, right? Okay, once we meet the requirements, make sure it moves into production, okay, and the SOC is able to use it, right? And once it is in production, the work doesn't stop over there, right? So you may encounter some of those bugs, okay, or some of the improvements to those automated workflows, okay. So you need to be ready with the process on how do we handle bugs and how do we enhance those playbooks in order to have a solid automated workflow in place, right? So this is a key slide which I want to emphasize again to all of you guys, is to make sure you have a solid process and a well-documented API documentation, and a team that is willing to automate and excel in order to succeed. Right. So coming on to the next slide is a sample workflow or a use case, okay, which can be used using the automation, right? For example, when an alert comes into the SOAP platform, okay, it can do a file reputation check against your that intel tools. For example, if you're using VT or the virus total, for example, right, or if you have a commercial that intel tool, right? So you can run the file reputation on those that intel tools, and also you can hunt for those files across the environment. At the same time, if it is known to be with a bad reputation, you can also block those hash if needed, right? So when you hunt those files, you may also have to take certain actions, okay, going further in the incident response lifecycle. That is, you may have to quarantine a system, or if you want to disable user account based on the type of event you have got and the process you have, right? So you can do those tasks using the SOAR platform itself, the SOAR integration itself. So you don't have to go every time to the cloud console and then click on multiple options or tabs to quarantine a system, right? So you can also integrate with an AD as we have showed, that is to disable the user account, right? So this is just a sample workflow or a use case that can be used. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, right? The key task that every SOC has to do or will be doing is to enrich the event or enrich the alert that comes into the SOAR platform, right? So this can be completely automated using the SOAR platform, and this is something which we are currently using in our environment as well, with the Carbon Black Cloud and the SOAR integration, right? So all the data that comes in is completely enriched. For example, it does the file reputation check, it gathers who the user is, what BU he belongs to, right? And also we will also get the file. For example, if you want to analyze a file in your sandbox, we can capture those files and send it to the sandboxing systems, okay, to run those files and get you a report. At the same time, we can also use the live query, which we understood in the previous slides, and or the live response, right, to get certain answers from the system itself to understand more about that particular alert, right? And once we consolidate all this, or once we do the enrichment, this can be produced to the SOC analyst, right? So that they can review all this in one single pane instead of going into multiple tools again to understand the details, and that will improve the incident response of the SOC analyst and make them more efficient in triaging these alerts, right? So this is an event enrichment is something which is a key for the most of the SOC team to perform, right? So moving on to the next slide, since we covered on the event enrichment, okay, there is also an incident response that can be done using the SOAR platform on the Carbon Black integration, right? For example, if you get an alert and then you understand this file reputation and the IP reputation is bad or malicious about a particular file or a domain or an IP, right? You can actually go ahead and send out an email if you wanted to concerned stakeholders, and then at the same time you can also quarantine this device using the integration. So make sure before you quarantine the device, based on your SOPs, you can actually ask an analyst a question whether you want to really quarantine the device based on the enrichment details that has been done. And at the same time, if the analyst says yes, it can quarantine the device, that can be automatically quarantined using the SOAR platform. Again, you don't have to go into the Carbon Black console to do this. So these are the few use cases which we are currently following in our environment. So it has helped us to investigate the incidents much faster in our estate. So yeah, moving on, maybe I'll pass it on to you, Bharat.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. Thanks, Giridhar, as well. Okay, so now we'll be covering up in short like how VMware succeeded with the Carbon Black, even all in terms of like deployment and in the operations wise. To name a few accomplishments, yeah, these are the things like we used our own homegrown product, the VMware product Workspace ONE, to install Carbon Black sensor, and we installed on all the 40,000 systems in just 7 days seamlessly. There was no end user impact. As I said before, we deployed at the time of the wave 1 COVID time, and the end users did not experience anything, or they did not get to know we have replaced the older one and with this new carbon black sensor. So it was that smooth. And then with respect to the other one, the granular data availability, which Giridhar was explaining. So with the carbon black, we got to know the bigger picture of like the attack chain, where and all it's communicating, where and all it did a lateral movement, when some malware gets installed into the system, what all the things it do. So we get all, I mean, in granular, the data visibility, I mean, the attack visibility, we get it in a single window. And integrating this, or like overall within the Carbon Black Cloud itself, it reduced a lot of manual effort. And with the intelligence, whatever it has, with the machine learning and AI capability, it was able to, I mean, behavior-based attack patterns are also identified. So this has reduced manual effort, and in integration with the SOAR tool, it has taken to some other level actually in incident response time overall. So as I said, we have deployed it across 40,000 systems, and with fine tuning or doing the event filter ingestion to the SIM, so it reduced a lot of noises. And we are in constant touch with the security business unit on the product improvements, or like we are the customer zero. So we do a pilot testing, or we are the ones who do the testing whenever there is any new feature released from the Carbon Black team. Is there anything to add here?
I think you covered it pretty much, Bharat. The major concern was always to have a faster response, right? On irrespective of whether it is a priority 0, 1, anything, right? Especially when it is high priority incidents, we wanted that holistic view. We needed that faster response time, and that's precisely improved. And at the same time, the day-to-day lives of analysts also who would need to be easy, right? So which is where automation comes into picture, so and even the holistic view comes into picture. So that's something helps security operations a lot.
Thank you. So in short, I mean, these are the best practices. Probably you guys can also follow. We first learn the environment, so we need to verify all the things. What are the compatibility? How is our environment? How we need to fine tune it as per the requirement. And then, like as I said, we need to validate and refine rules according to our requirement, and then enable the enterprise EDR for threat hunter and for detection and response. And then create a watch list. If you have something very specific, okay, to monitor, create a watch list and keep an eye on those things. And then integrating with the SOAR will add a great value. These are in short. So as we're running out of time, we are keeping it short. And yeah, this is our last slide. So to know more about the VMware on VMware programs, and if you have any question related to this, please shoot an email to vmw@vmware.com. And this is the blog page about the VMware on VMware program, and you can learn more about or know more about our Carbon Black products and how VMware has adopted the VMware product. So it's on like VMware on VMware stories. And yeah, you can also find more information on this URL as well. And you can follow us on this Twitter account ID. So with that, we are coming to an end of this webinar. Thank you.